These steel tomato cages are so versatile, and wait till you see what we're doing with this one. Guten Yardening, everybody! For the past year, we've been discovering the benefits of these steel cages, actually that we got for free from a friend who moved out of state. You know, we've used them for their actual purpose, which is to stake up tomatoes. We've also used them this winter to protect our trees from the rabbits. And now we have a different idea, one that we think is going to be successful and one that we're excited for, that's going to allow us to reuse some of the spent hay from our hay bale gardens from last year. So I'm going to show you the idea behind the layout and the way we're laying out this new garden. And then over the course of this season, we'll keep you updated on just what kind of growth we're getting. Well, after being out here for a year and a half, this is what our typical hay bale looks like. You can see the remains from last year's crop here already starting to break down. But if I go in here and dig deep, you can see some of the soil that we put in on top, and then this hay is really decomposing nicely. So what I want to do is to take advantage of these broken down bales, which might be a little bit hard to grow in since they don't really keep their form. You can see we actually tied some wire around them to help them keep their shape because these strings decompose really quickly. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take advantage of all this great organic matter, and I'm going to turn it into a vertical garden. You can see this long line of hay bales right here. Now, some of these hay bales actually kept their shape pretty well, and we'll reuse these a second time around. Now, if you've never worked with one of these all steel cages, I know this is about 4 feet tall, and we've got it looped here at the edge, so I can actually open this up all the way if I want to. But for now, what I've done is I've created the circle, kind of reclosed this cage, and then what I've done, and let's call these the feet here, I've sunk those into the ground as far as I could, which is only a couple of inches, and I've created a pretty sturdy setup here. But just to ensure that the wind doesn't get to it once we get everything inside, I've taken a couple of these 3-foot U-posts here, and I've put them off to the side, and I'm going to go ahead and attach these on both sides. So we've got a really nice sturdy garden here. And at the bottom, you can see what I've already started doing. Now, we put this in a spot kind of in the middle of our yard, but a spot where there was already a hole from one of our 17-gallon containers that we grow sweet potatoes in from last year. So I've got a spot that's already got dead grass in it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start stacking that hay up and creating a vertical garden made out of just that wonderful, already decomposing organic matter. So we've got an instant 4-foot vertical garden, and I'll tell you what we're going to be planting inside. Now this stuff is really falling apart, so I think the easiest way for me to get in here is just to bring a fork and get it lifted up as best I can, and then we'll try to wheel it over. Otherwise, I think this is going to be more difficult than it needs to be. But this is looking like some great material to start what we're from this point forward going to call a vertical Ruth Stout bed. We'll see how many of these bales that vertical garden takes up. All right, let's get it over. Now, as I'm getting this set up, I definitely want to hear your comments about what you think and how well you think this is going to work. And if this is something that you have, and this seems like a really nice idea to you, that you could get some good production vertically from a setup like this, then we're going to encourage you to give it a try right along with us. Now, this is another one of our garden experiments where we've never grown like this before, but it just makes sense to us that this would work. For now, to make this easy, we're just loading in from the top. But one of the things I really like about this cage is that there's plenty of room to reach in here, so we can actually do the planting after we've loaded this all up. We can reach in very easily to plant whatever we're going to put in here at each level. Now, I've added just over a foot or so of this organic matter, and you can see it's not exactly Ruth Stout because hers would have just been hay or whatever you're using as the organic matter. And we have a little bit of mix that we put on top of our bales. But that being said, what we want to do to give our plants in here, and we're actually going to be planting potatoes in here, what we want to do to get our potatoes the best shot possible is we're going to add some of our all-purpose fertilizer. And even though this is about 1.5 years old, we're also going to add a little bit of blood meal, which is going to give us a little bit of extra nitrogen as we're getting these bacteria down in here to really eat up and continue breaking this down. And we want to leave this for a couple of weeks before we plant our potatoes. So we're going to do that about every 12 inches or so. We're going to go ahead and add a layer of fertilizer. Again, we want to give the potatoes in here the best shot of making it. And I can just reach in here and feed it our fertilizer and our blood meal. You know, the more I fill this up, the more excited I'm getting, because I'm just seeing such a large amount of growing space that it's really not taking up a big footprint at all. Again, this is all potential space, because we've never tried this before, but I mean, I can't help but see the pounds of potatoes that can come out of here. And I'm gonna go ahead, get some more fertilizer on. All right, to fill this up to the top took me just about a half a dozen bales of that spent hay. And so maybe just a little bit under that. So we've got a ton of great organic material in here. It's going to continue breaking down. Now you can see what it looks like underneath here where we took our bales out. And this is our native soil underneath, which is pretty clayey, but we do have some residue organic matter. I didn't pull all of it up. So there's a little bit of that left here on the surface. And what we're going to do in this area, rather than replacing it with hay bales right now, we know this is a nice rich soil, even though it's clay. It's a nice rich soil. So we're going to work on it a little bit, and then we're going to get our onions planted in here. All right, I've wrapped up this first step of setting this up. And I got to say, there are a couple of things that stand out to me. One, of course, it was pretty easy to set up, but there are no out-of-pocket costs so far for this, because we already had the fertilizer on hand, and we already had the hay that we had used and grown successfully in last season, and we already had the cage. So if you have some of these ingredients, this might be a way for you to set up a vertical garden unlike any that you've had before. Now, when it comes to growing potatoes and hay, we definitely know what that success looks like. Our Ruth Stout garden has been producing well the last couple of years, and last year we had over 53 pounds in about 23 square feet. And with this setup, if I've calculated correctly, and what I've done is pi times length times height, what we're looking at is about 22 square feet of surface area, which is a pretty substantial amount for something, again, that's taking up such a minimal footprint. Now, what we're going to get in terms of production, I don't know, but here in a couple weeks, once we get this planted and throughout the season, we're going to let you track the progress of the potatoes growing in here. And I got to tell you, I know it's going to be 3+ months down the road before we harvest, but I can't wait to see what this turns into. Now, even without knowing the variety of potatoes that we plan to put in here, what we'd like from you is a guess as to the output in terms of weight when it comes time for harvest. So go ahead and give us a guess, and then in a couple of months when we go ahead and harvest from here, we'll see who's the closest. Well, we hope you enjoyed this video. We hope you're excited to see what this project becomes. I know we are. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.